Remembering everything you read is not a good idea in your reading career. And I want to use a man named Shereshevsky to illustrate that. And as far as I know, this guy was any old, ordinary Soviet guy. He was just a journalist. And there was one day where he was in a board meeting, and his boss noticed him not paying attention. He was slacking off. He wasn't listening in. And then after the meeting, the boss went to Solomon and said, okay, I noticed that you weren't really paying attention. He was trying to catch him out, essentially. And he asked him to recall what was said in the meeting. And not only did Solomon remember what was said, to the surprise of the boss, but he recalled each and every single word perfectly. He thought nothing of it. He thought it was just how everyone perceives the world. But the boss was so amazed that Solomon Shereshevsky was confused. And I'm not sure how true that story is or if it's just hearsay, but the point stands that this guy remembered everything. And you might think, wow, that's such an amazing ability to be able to recall basically everything you encounter ever for his whole life. Like he remembered everything. But it's actually his biggest curse. And why is that? Why is this seemingly a superpower, something that's a superpower, why is it so bad? Well, in reality, the ability to not forget is actually far worse than the ability to remember everything. Let me use an example. Let's say I mention Mercedes or something, the car brand, and I ask you to think of Mercedes. What's the first thing you think of? It could be, well, it actually depends for you. It could be a Mercedes that one of your family members owns or a friend. It could be your car because it's the closest link to you. It could be a Mercedes shop near to you that you know. And it's different for everyone else because what we think of is what's most relevant to us. That's what we think of. But you don't think of every single Mercedes on the road. You don't think of every single car and every single advert you've seen of Mercedes because why would you? It's irrelevant. These details don't matter. You remember what's important to you and you forget everything else. But this man, Solomon Shereshevsky, he would remember every single time he encountered a Mercedes. And equally, if I asked you, what does the color red mean to you? You could give me a million different answers depending on who you are, but this man would have remembered every single time in his life he encountered the color red in any way. Maybe it was in speech or he saw something red. But can you imagine that? Someone says a word to you and you are flooded with every single instance you've encountered it and every single connection it forms. That would be horrible. And I hope you begin to see the parallel I'm making to reading. It's if we remember everything in our reading, then we don't have the ability to forget what doesn't matter. And that doesn't give the opportunity for what's relevant to shine. Because that's what we're doing. When we read, we seek to get the gist of it, to get the main ideas, the central points and practical bits of advice that we can use in our life, or the things that can change how we see the world and the things that are relevant to us. But if we remember everything we read, then we're not allowing the important things to make themselves known. And it's strange because you see that a lot. You see book videos on YouTube about how to read, or rather how to remember everything. And I find it strange because why would you want to remember everything? Why would you want to be more like Solomon Shereshevsky? And of course, maybe they're saying how to remember more of what matters, which is good, of course, but we don't want to remember everything. So how can we apply that idea to our reading? Well, the first thing is to separate 3 types of knowledge or ideas. There's stuff that doesn't matter. And even if it's interesting for you, you have to ask yourself, does this piece of information matter to me? Is it relevant? Am I going to use this again? Is it likely for me to use it again? Or is it just something that's fluff, essentially, a detail to the thing I care about? And then the stuff that's on the other side of that, stuff that really stands out to you, the important ideas, the things that resonate. And usually these are the things you don't forget. You finish a book, you put it down and think, that idea hit me hard and I'm going to carry that forever. And I won't even need to write it down because it spoke to me so deeply that I'm going to now use it in my life and it changes how I see things. And those are good. Those are the ideas we want to preserve and the ones we want to allowed to flourish in the sea of irrelevant information. And then there's, in the middle, between those two, the stuff that is not so relevant, but it could be useful, and we can see it coming back to us in our life. And that's the stuff we still want to preserve. But with the last two, the relevant and the less relevant, but still good, we want to move them somewhere that we can refer to them again. Like a second brain, as they say, or a personal knowledge system. We want to put them somewhere where maybe we can forget about them if they're less important. We don't have to remember them in our short-term memory. Of course, it's ideal, but we don't have to. And we put them there in order to then allow them to resurface when we need them. Because the irrelevant details, we can guess that we will never use them. But some things that are more relevant, we want to encounter them again when the time is right. And we do that by putting them in this second brain and tagging them properly and naming them properly so that when we do need them, they make themselves known. We find them. And that gives us the opportunity to just forget about them. So what I do is I have an Obsidian page, which is a note-taking app essentially. And everything that's relevant and just a bit relevant, I put it there. And when I need it, when I'm writing or when I'm coming up with ideas for new videos, articles, tweets, whatever, I go back to it, and the connections I form when I write it down they take me on like a little trail, like a trail of breadcrumbs, and they show me where the ideas were and how they link. And it's so helpful because I don't have to always remember it in the moment. I don't have to rely on my short-term memory, which is flawed. And even old ideas that I may have forgotten resurface. They make themselves known. And consider the alternative. If I put everything there, like every single detail of every book, because I felt like I had to remember everything as if it was revising for a school test or something, then it would be all the useful things I want are going to be drowned out by the rest. And it will be hell. It will be horrible to navigate and to look through. So like Solomon Shereshevsky, who couldn't forget anything, we have to be willing to forget stuff, because it's actually a superpower to be able to abandon ideas and only remember the really valuable ones. And I hope you can take that in your reading and that principle and apply it somehow. Thanks for watching.